Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us in today's webinar. My name is Aditi and I am the ambassador of Buzz at Tattvik Analytics. To give you a brief of what Tattvik is, we are an authorized Google partner for reselling Google Analytics 360 suite licenses, and we are also one of the leading providers of digital analytics solutions and consulting for SMEs and large enterprises. Today, this webinar is on deep dive in app analytics, where we shall be studying and exploring Google Analytics and Firebase Analytics for applications, mobile applications. It is being presented by one of our technical analysts, Vatsal. All right, now just a few things before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I will bring them up at the end of the presentation, and we will be sure to answer as many questions as time permits. Also, I will be carrying out a couple of polls during the webinar that will help us to know you guys better. Having said that, what I'm going to do is just run our first poll of the session. It will help us and help Vatsal actually to understand how many of you guys use which app analytics. It will just take 30 seconds. The poll is open only for 30 seconds. If you could just let me know. Based on the answers we get, Vatsal will be able to customize his query solving in the session ahead. All right. Cool, I have my answers. It seems I'm going to close the poll and hand over the session to Vatsal.
Thank you very much, Aditi. Really appreciate the introduction part. Hello folks, how are you all doing? I'm glad that you have joined us for this webinar. I know that all of you have a different set of expectations, and I've also read your comments that you have guys written while you registering. So apart from covering this agenda displayed on the screen, I will try to give answer to your queries related to Firebase Analytics and Google Analytics as well. So first of all, we'll discuss an important update from Google, and then we'll check out the comparison of Firebase Analytics versus Google Analytics. And I'll also give you a brief on difference between GTM containers available for both products. And there are like different approaches available to implement Google Analytics and Firebase Analytics in your application. So Tag Manager is the one of the recommended way by Google to use in your implementation. Then we'll explore two different use cases. After the concluding the session, we'll see what is the next in our journey. So let's start with the update. So rather I'll say this update is actually inspired me to take this webinar up. And you can see in IO 17, Google team has released many features in Google platform as a Firebase tool. So there are many features available in Firebase Analytics like Stream View, Bug View, Debug View, and many more. They are also working with the Fabric team to get your crash reports merged with Crashlytics. So there are a lot more interesting things to take a look at in the Firebase Analytics. So one among these important updates, one is related to Google Analytics and Firebase Analytics. And this update is now onwards, if you go and create a new property in Google Analytics, then UI will not allow you to create it. It will just force you to connect the Firebase property or Firebase existing Firebase project to your Google Analytics.
Okay, so I'm just going to intervene and because I have a question. So if say I have an application and I want to create a new Google Analytics property for that app. How do you suggest I do that? Is that an option for me?
Sure thing, Aditi. I'm glad that you asked this question. I mean, after this update, people are struggling with creating application analytics in Google Analytics, like property for Google Analytics. To answer your questions, we just need to go ahead and create a new property and just select a website as a tracking type. So creating a website as a tracking type at the time of creating property will not conflict your data or something like that. It is just a container that holds your data. So basically, after creating this property, one default view will be created, which will be all website data. And after that, you can create one another view, the mobile view, for these to satisfy your requirement. So by this, you can create a property which is like a very straightforward way to create a mobile app property for Google Analytics, for your Google Analytics. So this question was asked in many forums, and as well as the partner forum as well. So this approach is been discussed by the Google experts itself. So I think this help you to understand the confusion between both of them. So it will just create a property as you are creating it a native way. Like if you go ahead, if you are having a property created, and you just need to track your app analytics data into that particular property, that created property, you just go and create a mobile view. Or if you are having a newer implementation, fresh implementation, then you just need to create a website property and just create a mobile app view that will help you, and you can get rid of the previous default view that is being created while you are creating a property.
Okay, I understand how I can manage around the Firebase Analytics for my but I still have one question as to what is the purpose of connecting the Firebase project into Google Analytics?
Right. As you've seen, if we go and try to create a Google Analytics property, then it will ask me to connect my application, the existing Firebase project, into my Google Analytics. So to give you an example or a clear view of this particular thing is, let's say you are having a huge team which consists of developers as well as different analysts and marketers and the salesperson as well. And now you are using a Firebase product as a development product as well. And you are also using Firebase Analytics as one of the analytics tool that you want to have on your application. So let's say those analysts or those market persons or a salesperson does not have any, it does not make sense to share a whole Firebase project to them. So it is a very good idea to create or connect Firebase with Google Analytics, by which you can get this old look and feel of Google Analytics, which help your market person and other analysts to understand the data in clear way. One thing to remind is that the data or the view is just being changed. Only difference is this: if you go ahead and check the Firebase Analytics in your Firebase console, then it is the same, but with the horizontal menu bar. In here, if you go and connect same project with the Google Analytics, it will have this vertical menu bar, and you can see there are certain different menus available, navigation items available, which is very different from the native mobile Google Analytics property. So this I can say this is just an iframe by which Google Analytics UI is loading Firebase Analytics data in your Google Analytics property. So the simple approach toward this is, if you want to have a user management on your Firebase Analytics, then just go ahead and connect this particular Firebase project with Google Analytics and give access as you are giving in the Google Analytics property. Yeah, so this was the update and the different kind of approaches of creating Google Analytics property, and also connecting your Firebase Analytics with the Google Analytics data. So there was a confusion between like many of the our clients were asking like how to create a Firebase property in Google Analytics and what are the ways to track it. But there are no different ways to track it, but this is the simpler approach to towards a user management. I hope now the confusion is clear. So we'll go ahead and take a look upon what are the differences between Firebase Analytics and Google Analytics. So we'll just compare two of the platforms, analytics platforms.
Right, but before you do that, since we are going to talk about Google Analytics 360, I would just like to run a quick poll to understand how many of our attendees are already currently using Google Analytics 360. That is the premium version of Google Analytics. If there are any of the attendees who plan to implement App Analytics through GA360, we could definitely help them out. We'll keep the poll open for next 10 to 15 seconds. We are getting some answers. So cool. I think we've received all our answers. Guys, thank you so much for taking this poll. Vatsal will continue with the comparison for Firebase and Google Analytics. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aditi, for running this poll. Yeah, so we'll compare the Google Analytics 360 suite and Firebase Analytics, not the whole Firebase product. We are just comparing Firebase Analytics with the Google Analytics 360 suite. So if you have a 360 suites, and then SLA and many things are by default with you, but apart from that, what else is remaining, or what crucial parts are needs to be compared while choosing the right platform for your app analytics. So one of the key thing is the reports. So Google Analytics provides a UI where you can create a custom reporting. You can share those reports with each others and have those reports compared as well. You can also include an advanced segment into that reports. So it is very flexible UI provided by Google Analytics. You can have this kind of facility available in Google Analytics. But as Firebase Analytics as having limited reports, there are pretty standard reports available. We cannot create different kind of reports, and we not have a UI feature available to apply higher level segments. Advanced segments, I will say. A second comparison is an enhanced e-commerce comparison. So if you are an e-commerce company, then it is a straightforward thing to use enhanced e-commerce feature of Google Analytics. So it is a very flexible implementation, and you can track your user journey towards the transaction, and you can easily track those data, and you can analyze those data very easily by Google Analytics standard reports. So there are pretty standard reports available in Google Analytics. But if we go and take a look at Firebase Analytics, there are no dedicated reports available yet. I hope Google guys are working very hard to get these reports working. The third point is the cross-platform tracking. So if let's say an example, like if you are having a website and Android and iOS application running in the market, and user is using your website and moving to your Android or iOS application, then there is a no connection between them. But by using a cross-platform, you can merge those two different users as a single user entity, and you can analyze the data based upon that data. So in the Firebase Analytics, there isn't anything available like cross-platform. There is two different flavor of available of Firebase Analytics, which is iOS and Android only. Fourth thing is to compare is an APIs. So API is a useful thing, and Google Analytics comes with a lot of APIs, like co-reporting API if you want to track, if you want to get the data, which is basically being tracked into your Google Analytics property. So co-reporting will help you to get those data. Apart from that, embed API, management API, if you want to get unsampled data from Google Analytics, then APIs will work for you. But as in Firebase Analytics, it does not have any APIs. Now, if you go with the Google Analytics, eventually, if you use analytics.js or Android SDK or iOS SDK, eventually all of those will be converted into a measurement protocol. So measurement protocol is just an HTTP request which will be sent to Google servers, and Google servers understands, extracts the parameter from that measurement protocol and stores the data, and you can see those data into your Google Analytics properties. So let's say take an example of kiosk. So one machine which is standalone, which is able to connect with the internet or interact with the internet, can it be tracked? So simple answer is yes. So using a measurement protocol, you can track these kiosk or internet connected machines with Google Analytics properties. Whereas in the Firebase Analytics, there isn't any mechanism available to track this kind of devices like kiosk or any other devices. It's just limited to Android and iOS.
Okay, so the comparison is pretty exhaustive. I don't have any other confusions apart from one. So I understand all the parameters that we have compared over here. My only doubt is the purpose of API in this comparison slide. If you could please throw some light on what is the purpose of API over here.
Sure, Aditi. So lots of our clients ask us to create a meaningful reports. So by just creating a reports inside Google Analytics will have some kind of sense. But if you put that particular data or that reports into a visual component, then it will create a meaningful approach towards the analysis. So if let's say you want to share an attractive report to your manager or some higher authority, then the dashboard will be helpful. And to get data into a dashboard is with the help of APIs only. So we can leverage the benefit of APIs over here, and we can get the dashboard done, and we can share it with the different persons. So there is a data studio as well available, so we can leverage those things as well in this particular section. So yes, the point to compare is that we have APIs with the Google. We can create custom dashboards with the help of those data, but as we don't have anything up on the kind of Firebase Analytics. So I hope that clears your doubt. Okay, so moving forward, we have compared these two products, but lot of negative things on the Firebase Analytics. But hold on, this is the comparison between Google Analytics and the Firebase Analytics. There are a lot more in the Firebase product as a whole bunch. So if we go ahead and check the add-on parts, that different modules available inside Firebase, then we have this kind of module like a notification. So notification is one of my favorite thing into Firebase. So I can say it is an upgraded version of GCM. So notification, we can schedule the notification. We can send the notification to a custom audience. Like I can create an audience based upon my analytics data being tracked into Firebase Analytics, and we can send those audience to a notification in this particular module using Firebase UI itself. Second part is dynamic links. Or does it say a magical link? So it provides you a UI where you can create a universal link from which a user will be directed to a different kind of channels. Like let's take an example. User is browsing through web in their mobile devices, and let's suppose your advertisement will appear to that user. And if user is clicking on that particular advertisement, then user should be redirected to your application, or if application is not installed, then the one use case is it should be redirected to the Play Store or the App Store. So dynamic links provides you a flexibility to create a links which will redirect user based upon the use cases. So it is very useful feature to use in the Firebase. Third thing is to use a remote configs. So it is very important and useful feature to use. So it provides a mechanism to store key value pairs at the Firebase server. But hold on, it doesn't limit itself to holding this key value pairs. We can able to run the A/B test. We can provide a personalization to the mobile applications or our users. We can also have some kind of different mechanism based upon the key values pair stored into a Firebase server. So let's take an example. You are rolling out a new feature, and you want to test it to certain users, certain set of people. So you can create one audience and you can roll out a feature using remote config to those users only. And if it works well by analyzing the data being tracked into Firebase Analytics, then you can go ahead and roll out this feature into a whole world. Moving forward is the authentication part. Authentication is pretty simple thing in any application we have in today's world. So like developer needs to do some kind of authentication work, and it is very simple job when it comes to a Firebase. So Firebase provides Google authentication and Twitter and Facebook or email ID or password authentication as well. So I'll just stop myself by just explaining these things to further level. It is very self-explanatory. Database is very real time, and it's NoSQL database, so it's very simple to understand and very simple to manipulate. Crash reporting, as I mentioned earlier, like Fabric has joined Firebase, guys, and like we as a developer, I specifically love crash analytics reports to check the crashes of my application. So crash analytics will be the future reporter of crashes. As of now, we have to add a Fabric and crash analytics into our application, but going further, I think Firebase guys will be rolling out the feature where we just need to add a Firebase, and the crash reports will be reported by the crash analytics. That is the main important part of the Firebase. So that's it. We have concluded this section of our webinar, like what is the difference between both of them. So after choosing the right platform, the different approach comes under the implementation part. So let's say you have chosen the Google Analytics, so and you go ahead with the Tag Manager, which is recommended approach. So let's say let me give you the introduction of the Google Tag Manager. So Tag Manager is just a add-on tool that comes in the Google Analytics 360 suite. And also Firebase is also having a different container for Google Tag Manager. So Tag Manager is a dynamic tagging system where you have a different kind of tags available. So let's say different kind of tags. These are the different kind of tags, and these all have a different kind of tracking type. So let's say if it is a tag of Google Analytics, then the data will be sent from your device to Google Analytics. And if it is tag of AdWords, then it will be flowed, data will be flowed to AdWords and respective platform, TBM and all that platforms. So it is like you just configure one shot into your application, and you publish the application in your Play Store, and you can manage or manipulate data from Google Tag Manager up to certain extent without publishing the application or coding it again and again as we do in the native implementation of Google Analytics. So it is a dynamic tagging system, and we can leverage this advantage of having these tags to beautiful tags to flowing into our mobile application and flowing data into different kind of platforms available. So if you go to the Google Tag Manager UI, you will be asking to create a container, which is basically a two type of container. One is version 4 and one is a version 5. So let's say version 4. So it is a legacy container. Basically, it supports the Google Analytics. And if you go ahead with the version 5 container, it supports Firebase Analytics. So if we go in detailed comparison, so data layers are available into version 4 container, but not in the version 5 container. We have a simpler approach towards data layer instead of data layer in version 5, which is a bundle. So bundle is again a key value pair set of keys, and you can push it into one bundle, and that bundle will be tracked by version 5 container. If we go ahead further and check enhance e-commerce visibility, then obviously version 4 is already having a e-commerce enhanced e-commerce tracking ability. And if we go ahead with version 5, no, it is a big no with the enhanced e-commerce. So we are in a way to see when Google guys will be rolling out this feature for enhanced e-commerce in the version 5. If we campaign tracking is the crucial part of your mobile application, and it is something that you should do when you are investing your money into different campaigns. So if we go ahead with the version 4 and we are tracking data into Google Analytics, so it requires a special implementation. Obviously version 5 is also requires some kind of special implementation, but not deeper as version 4 requires. So we'll be covering one use case related to this in this webinar only. So let's say third-party tags. So limited third-party tags available in the version 4, but in the version 5, many third-party tags are available. One more feature is value collection. So in the version 5 container, you get value collection. So value collection variable is something in which you give in one input, and based upon certain condition, you get the output. So it is the multi if else looping, you can say. I hope the comparison part is clear now.
Yeah, it seems pretty well and pretty, clear. Although, just if to conclude this comparison, if I were to ask you which is an ideal container for my app, what would be your thoughts on it?
Sure, Aditi. Let's say I'm having an e-commerce company. So, but obviously, I will go ahead and choose the Google Analytics, and I'll also go ahead with the Tag Manager version 4. Let's say I'm a gaming company, and I create games, different kind of games, where e-commerce doesn't matter. But I am required to track certain important events only. So I'll go with the Firebase Analytics, as it requires certain kind of implementation, which will, Firebase product will be helpful to develop users, develop that particular application, and also a version 5 container will be helpful in this case. So this is a one simple example, whereas you can go with the version 4 as you are e-commerce company, or version 5 if you are a gaming company. So one thing you can do is you can leverage both of the containers, and you can take advantage of both of the containers. Like if I'm an e-commerce company and I want to track my data, I want to track my enhanced e-commerce data into Google Analytics, then I'll use my version 4 container only for e-commerce tags. And for other tags like open screen tag or other events, I'll use my version 5 container, in which I'll get this benefit, campaign tracking benefit, as well as the many third-party tags will be available. And also I'll get out of the box variable, which is a value collection.
Okay, Vatsal. So before we get on to the use cases, one of our attendees, Bhaskar, has a question for us. He's asking what if we use Firebase Tag Manager to send data to Google Analytics in case of a mobile app?
Yes, Aditi, it's pretty simple. Like I shared earlier, like if you want to track a data using Firebase Analytics container and Firebase GTM container version 5, which is, and want to send it to a Google Analytics, then we can simply create a tag with respect to Google Analytics tracking tag, and we can send it to that particular Google Analytics property. So it is very simple. So yeah.
All right, Bhaskar, I hope we've answered the question for you. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them in the question box. I see Bhaskar has raised his hand. I'm just going to unmute you. You can ask your question if you would like. Bhaskar, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So the question would be, see, we can use the Firebase container, but there are so many restrictions, as you mentioned. So there is no way we can track enhanced e-commerce. At the same time, the number of custom dimensions that can be supported using an open screen is only 26 or 27. So is there a way around?
Yes, Bhaskar. Wait a minute. Okay, Bhaskar. So to answer your query, if we create, there are two different tag types available. If we go ahead with the this simple Firebase Analytics tag, which is available in the Tag Manager version 5 container, then there is a limitation of you said that 25 or 26 user parameters, I would say, not the custom dimension. But if we go ahead with the tag type, and we choose a tag type of Google Analytics, and we push the custom dimension, as many custom dimension as we want, we can access those, or we can take an advantage of a version 5 container to that particular tag, and we can get more than 26 custom dimensions into that. It is just a confusion between the version 5 with Firebase Analytics tag and version 5 with the Google Analytics tag. Both of are considering a user properties as a parameter to input as a custom dimension or a user property in the case of Firebase Analytics. So we can have we can create a tag which is a Google Analytics kind of tag, and we can leverage more than 25 25 custom dimensions and push it into a bundle, and then we can access it into that particular tag only, not in the Firebase tag. I hope that is clear.
Yeah, that clears. Just one follow-up question. You also mentioned that in version 4, there is support for data layer, but in version 5, there is no support for data layer. Does that mean that if I move to Firebase container, my complete implementation on the app changes?
Yes. So there is a like sibling of syntax of available of data layer, which is a bundle, which is a similar kind of implementation, which is will be a key value pair as well. So yes, the straightforward answer is yes. You need to change all of the implementation part. But if you want to use as you mentioned earlier, like you want to have a advantage of NNC commerce, then I would request you to keep version 4 container just for the NNC commerce part, and other things to move ahead with the version 5 container.
Got it. Got it. Thanks. Thanks.
Right? Awesome. All right, Vatal. So we have one more attendee who's raised his hand and wants to ask a question. Kamlesh, hi, there.
Yes.
Hello, Kamlesh.
Yeah.
Hi, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. We are facing some problem. The traffic coming on Android Webview, we can't track the traffic source on. We have a lot of traffic, around 1 lakh traffic every day on an Android Webview devices and browser, and we can't track the source from that browser.
Okay.
I just want to know how you can track this source. Is that
Okay.
clear?
Yeah. Just a sec. So, Kamlesh, as it happens to be, the use cases that Vatsal is going to take up, the first use case that he's going to talk about is the Webview traffic source.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
what I suggest is if he can just go through his use case once, and if you have any question, I'll get back to you about it. Does that work for you?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, guys. So moving forward, the use cases. So I'm going to cover two use cases. To keep in mind that this use case is, to keep it short, like there are constraints that we are considering a Google implementation, Google Analytics implementation with the version 4, and I'm going to have this examples or this use case is based upon the Android only. So it is not the thing like you cannot have this implementation in the iOS, but you can have, but certain steps will be changed. Yeah, so let's move forward. So very first use case, which is one of my favorite use case, is track WebView as a screen view. So most of the clients or most of the real world user or application creator are struggling with this particular use case, like how to track a web view as a screen view. Like most of the applications is having certain, at some point of time, it adds a web view in your application. So let's take an example of like I'm having one FAQ pages, frequently asked question pages, and it is on my website. Now it keeps keeps changing on the regular basis, and I do not want to have hard coded into my application. And so what I'll do, I'll just put a web view and I'll render that web page from my server. So it will be rendered always freshly as it like updated. So it is a very like common thing where you are tracking your screen inside your application as a screen view, and as soon as user enters to a web view, then it will be the journey will break, like user will be fall under a black hole and then again popping up from the another screen view. So it will be abrupt journey, or we can say a broken journey of a user. So to get started, the prerequisite is the Google Analytics implemented with version 4 container. You can always go ahead with the version 5 container as well, but some syntax will be changed. It's the only difference. So another thing, the prerequisite is at least one web view implemented in your application. So the approach goes in this way. If user opens the screen view, which is a web view, push a data layer in a on page finished method. So in on page finished method, you should have a URL mapped, and you can have you can take advantage of that URL. You can use a value collection of version 5, and you can pass a screen view as per your requirement, right? So you can configure a screen view type tag into your GTM after pushing the data layer in on page finished method. Last thing is optional, but you can change a user agent in your web view. Because it is optional, but I would recommend you to use this. If let's take an example, your web view or a website is also having a Google Analytics, and it is being tracked in a different property, and which is a website property, right? Website view, I would rather say. So just think in mind, if user is coming from application and the page FAQ page is being visible into a mobile application, and the analytics part of web page works as it is. So the JavaScript sends the hit to a Google Analytics web property, and it will say that one user came, one session has been started, and the page view is this particular. So this will also increase your user and session count, also bounce rate in your web property. So by changing a user agent and mapping the changed user agent into your website implementation, you can have configured a trigger where you can block those page views as being fired to a web property. Instead, we are already pushing a screen view type screen view tag into application property. So to take a look at this example. So this is a simplest example of tracking FAQ screen. So whenever I've requested a web view, it will go and get the page from the server, and after a page is finished with the loading, it will give a callback to this function on page finished. And in this particular function, you can utilize the URL that you have passed to a web view, and you can change the screen name. I have not dynamically specified the screen name over here, but you can always pass a URL to a data layer, and you can, or bundle, I would rather say, or bundle, and bundle will be utilized into your version 5 container. In here, we have taken an example of version 4 container. That's why I'm putting a screen view open screen event and with the screen name as a FAQ screen. So I'll configure a tag with this particular data layer, which will be firing a screen view on each and every page refreshes, or let's say I'm moving one URL to different URL in my web view itself. So it is very easy to get this done. This looks like 2 or 3 steps, but in detail, it is a very much huge thing to implement. It requires a different kind of perceptions of users, or a developer perception as well. So I would request you to check one web view blog. We have written one a blog on this particular implementation, this particular use case, how to track your web view in the screen view, and it has a granular level detail of each and everything, and how to change user agent, and how to block page views on your website or web page. So stay tuned. We are releasing blog tomorrow, and it might help you to implement this particular use case.
All right. Kamlesh, does that answer your query pretty much? Hello?
Yeah, absolutely correct.
All right. Yeah, hello?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to either raise your hand or ask a question in the control panel of your GoToWebinar question box. Thank you so much. Right, Vatsal, on to our next use case.
Thanks, Aditi. Thanks, Kamlesh. So next use case is a pretty burning use case, which is a campaign attribution. It is like every user is having issue with the campaign attribution. Some of the users don't know how to track the campaign attribution. Some of them are confused between the install attribution and the campaign attribution. So campaign attribution is a simple word where the install attribution fits in, and other things like if I implemented a deep link and app is being opened by a deep link, then that particular campaign is also being feed in that particular attribution report. So campaign attribution does have two different approaches. One is the install attribution and other is the deep link attribution. So install attribution is a pretty simple way. So there is one like listener available, which is like in the documentation itself. If you want to have a look at that listener, you can check out our blog as well, how to implement Google Analytics with the help of Google Tag Manager version 4 container. So yes, so in this particular use case, I'm going to cover a deep link use case, so that you need to have this prerequisites. Google Analytics is implemented with the GTM version 4 container. Also, a working deep link is most important thing to get started. So there are 6 steps attached to this particular use case, and I have simplified this use cases to this level. Otherwise, you can also wait for our one another blog, which will be written by my team, and it will be based upon the campaign attribution, the right way to track your campaigns into Google Analytics using GTM version 4 container, and hopefully version 5 will be also available. So in the next week we'll be publishing this blog as well. So to conclude this use case, I'll rather go with this particular steps. So if app is open, let's say user has opened the app, so you need to check the intent is having any referral or not. So if I'm a user and I'm opening the application from deep link, then there might be any other referral available with my deep link, and the application will receive that particular referral. So I need to check that referral, and I need to get it back from that particular URL. Then the third step is to check if the app is a web URL or an app crawler. So if it is a web URL, then it must be having the schema of HTTP of HTTPS : // or it is a web app crawler, then it must be having some package name kind of URL build. Then if it is a web URL, then just you need to parse the UTM parameters from attached with that particular web URL, or you can pass a host name from where a user have arrived from the from which web or which website user has been arrived. So you need to pass that parameter into a data layer. So by passing the campaign parameters, I mean pushing this parameters to a data layer. The fifth step is if app crawler is there, if referrer is an app crawler, then process that information and pass the parameter, those parameters into a data layer. How to process that? Let's say if a user searches in the search box that like Android gives you, like Omnibox, which is a pretty simply available on the user screen, and user can search from there, and you can the application can be opened from there as well. So you can have you can take an advantage of that, and you can consider this traffic as an organic traffic if you want. So you can search for typical pattern of package name by which the user has arrived from that particular app crawler. Then you can pass that particular parameters to a campaign. And the sixth thing, most important thing, yes, create or configure tags and triggers in the GTM version 4 container. So to go into a further detail, the second step is to getting referrer. So in this shown in the screen, you can have a code, this kind of code, which will be getting you a referrer URI, which is a parsable, obviously, URI, which is having a different kind of parameters or with the host name, but obviously. So this method will be helpful to get the referrer from the any activity or intent. So the third step is to check whether the referrer is the web or a app. So you can simply put a condition whether it contains HTTP or HTTPS. We come to fourth and fifth step. So it is simple step where process the referrer data and push it into a data layer. So to not go to detail as time does not provide this particular example to go into detail, but the blog will be the better way to towards this particular implementation of understanding how to process that referrer data. I would request you to check out the blog. And yeah, after getting those data as a source, medium, and campaign, this will be processed and pushed into a data layer. Now, this data layer should be pushed with the open screen event, so that your session start with this open screen event. No further, no additional events, no nothing. Just a screen view with the campaign parameters. So it will simply start a session, and a session will be attributed to that particular source medium, whichever is available or whichever has opened the application. So at the conclusion part of this particular use case is the configuring GTM tag inside your container version 4. So, but obviously in the field to set part, field to set area, you need to specify CS as in campaign source, CM as in campaign medium, and CN as a campaign name. And other parameters, if GCL ID is available or term or content is available, then you can pass it with the data layer, and you can have it here on the tag side, and the tag will be sending this particular parameters to Google Analytics platform. Yeah, so that's it. I think we are, these two use cases I covered. One additional thing I need to share is you can have a notification being tracked as a campaign attribution. Like, let's say you are having lots of money invested in the notification part as well, and you are not so sure that how many of users have clicked into that that notification and converted from the journey. So I can suggest you to track that particular app open as a notification open, and you can push source medium data inside a data layer, and the same tag will be fired with starting a session which will be attributed to a notification. Right, I think that will help you to track a notification as a campaign. If you have any further doubts, you can reach out to us at any time. I think we should move ahead with the conclusion part. So yes, so in the conclusion, if you guys are having an e-commerce company, a right question is to have this, ask yourself is to, if I'm satisfied if I'm not having e-commerce tracking, or if I'm satisfied if I'm not having a cross-platform tracking, and many more. So it leads to a conclusion towards a Google Analytics platform if you want to have this enabled in your application tracking. So if you want to have enhanced e-commerce, you can choose Google Analytics with as a core analytics tool for your app tracking. If you are a gaming company, as I mentioned earlier, if you are only concerned about the events, some of the events that user is doing, and not bothering about how they are purchasing or how they are buying my application, or whether any in-app purchases or not, then you should go ahead with the Firebase Analytics, as it also adds in the development efforts, and it will free up your developer by adding this particular platform into your development stack, so that your developer can focus on the development part rather than just implementing the analytics. Okay, so here I conclude that Google Analytics is the session-centric application like analytics platform available, and it will have a user as a top and the different session being tracked at the bottom, and then the different kind of hits, which will be kind of screen view, events, and obviously enhance e-commerce data. And the Firebase Analytics is the user-centric tool, which will give advantage to focus on the events based upon like user is doing on your application. But hang on, why not both? Why not to use both? Like, we have two different tools, and we can take advantage of development at the side of Firebase, and we can take a business analysis taken by Google Analytics. So if you want to derive a business how your business is performing and how you are doing in the market, then you can take an example, take advantage of Google Analytics. And if you want to have advantage of your development efforts, and if you want to have also take advantage of future enhancement that Google is going to roll out soon, then you can obviously go ahead and use the Firebase. So one question will be coming in your mind is that by using both analytics tool, the developer will make duplicate efforts, or it will be further more efforts required by the developer. But we have the solution. We are working hard to provide such a fantastic tool which will give you a liberty to choose different kind of platforms, but your developer does not require multiple implication of or implementation of different analytics tool. So we present the Burn Analytics as an XDK, which is a add-on to your developer. It will be helpful to send data to a Google Analytics, Firebase Analytics, Facebook Analytics, BigQuery, DoubleClick Quick Manager, and obviously Amazon AWS Cloud. So it is just an SDK which add-ons to your developer effort, and it will have the one universal syntax, which is just one-time written approach, one-time implementation approach. After that, data will be flowed inside all of them or some of them, or as many as you required on platforms. Let's go and check out the value proposition it provides in your development stack. So it will improve your accuracy. Like sometimes what happens is one platform is having a different kind of syntax or naming convention, and in the second platform we are having different kind of naming convention and different syntax, and then we'll go ahead and try to consume or merge this data, and will it is just a tedious job to have. So with this tool we can have you can leverage this one syntax, and you can have this one syntax used to be send the data in different analytics. Decrease dependency. So we are having this kind of approach, while when you just need to include this SDK inside your application, then the platform will be maintained by our server. Like you want to implement Google Analytics right now, then you just need to implement one Analytics SDK and publish it one time. Then in the second approach, without releasing the application, you can enable the Firebase Analytics or Facebook Analytics or AWS hits to intermediate process to enable you to send data into that before releasing the application into a Play Store. So you need not to worry about to when user is downloading or updating that particular application. Obviously, it is a time saving, like 70% of your time of developer time will be is out, and they will be having main focus or main objective as a product development or product improvement, not the analytics part. Apart from that, M1 Analytics comes with the add-on feature, like it will track some of the important metric, and those are like we can have a battery usage, network status, whether user is using 4G, 3G or Wi-Fi, and based upon that you can provide certain kind of personalization or certain kind of uh, I don't know, some certain kind of features. You can have a current status of a mobile device, like whether it is in the motion, or whether it is on the walking state, or is in the still mode. You can have a root status, whether your user is using your application in the rooted device or not. You can have a device location. You can have whether user is using dual SIM or a single SIM. Also your competitor application list, so that you can analyze that my user is using this kind of application, and those are my competitor. So you can use your strategies to beat them. So app version and app name is pretty straightforward. You can also have a look at the total versus available space in internal and external memory, so that you can check whether which kind of devices are prone to uninstall your application. A user is uninstalled application due to storage space issues. And to identify each and every like devices, we track the device ID, back ID, Android ID, advertising ID, and obviously FCM. So all these informations are encrypted, and this all information, based upon this information, you can also predict the uninstalls and the reason behind those. And yeah, so this is the one pretty fantastic tool provided by one of our core services. So you can take advantage of this tool and have implemented the different kind of analytics platform in your application. Yes, Aditi. So I concluded the session. If we have any further queries, I would happy to answer them.
All right. So we have a couple of questions. Just a reminder, guys, if you have any questions, please type them up in your question box in the GoToWebinar control panel, and I shall bring them up. All right. So our question from Max is if we can track the app install attribution in Firebase.
Yes, Aditi, but we cannot, uniquely identify those kind of installs in Firebase. But Firebase is also working hard for this particular use cases, like how we can get exact installs attribution from the Firebase. The reports are available to get the campaign data regarding installs, but those are not pretty clear, I would say. But if you use Google Analytics, then they are pretty clear. Like, yeah, I can get back to this query after the research, or certain research is required upon this question.
Okay, we have another question from Abhishek. He is asking if we can send personalized notification to the users based on their behavior in the app.
Yes, Abhishek. So we can take advantage of remote config and notification and Firebase Analytics. So based upon 3 different modules of Firebase, we can send personalized notification to users. So it varies upon your use cases, like how you want to send on what kind of behavior data you want to analyze and send the personalized notification. But yes, we can send. It is a feasible approach or use case, I would say.
All right, we have already gone over time and we are running out of time, so I'm just going to pick up the last question that we have for the day. I think you already covered it earlier in the session, but just as a refresher, one of our attendees is asking if he can carry out A/B testing using Firebase.
Sure, Aditi. As I mentioned earlier, like we can go ahead and create like A/B test using a remote config feature available in the Firebase. But one roadblock is that like as we can create a content experiment in the older implementation of Google Analytics. We cannot we in that use case we can have a different kind of report which will be shown in the Google Analytics, and that will be helpful to utilize which use case or which variation has won the over other variation. So yes, in the roadblock in the case of using Firebase for A/B test with the remote config is that we do not have any dedicated reporting towards the A/B test. We can only leverage the analytics events, Firebase analytics events in your in your application tracking, and you can track that particular event based upon your variation. So you need to pass that variation into certain user parameter, user property, and you can analyze the pattern, which one is being like which one is winning from that. So this is the only one roadblock available with the A/B test in the Firebase Analytics.
Right. Thank you so much, Vatsal. All right. So it looks like we've covered most of our question. If there are any other questions that we might have left out, guys, please stay rest assured. Vatsal and I will both get back to you personally over an email with answers to all your queries. I think that's all for today, Vatsal. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before a wrap up?
No, Aditi, I think we are good for now. And thank you very much, everyone. You've been a very good audience. It was a pleasure being with you today.
All right. So thank you so much. We appreciate all of you being here. Our next webinar is on Google Data Studio for mastering the art of data visualizations. It is going to be taken up by Viraj, who is a customer success manager at Tattvik. I shall send out a link in the follow-up email along with the recording of this webinar. Please be sure to register for this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you guys so much for joining us.